Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, June 9th, and this is your Arkansas Daily Briefing. It was a busy weekend in Arkansas, and spoiler alert, Grant Hardin was captured. So let's get to it. We're going to start today with some tough news on where Arkansas stands when it comes to taking care of our children. For the second year in a row, the state ranked 45th in the nation for overall child well-being. That is according to the 2024 Kids Count data book from the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And the state has not broken out of the bottom 10 since 2021. In 3 out of the 4 categories that it measures, we're in the bottom 10, and we've seen no progress in those categories from last year. We are 45th in economic well-being, 47th in health, and 46th in family and community support. Just looking at economic stability, our child poverty rates in Arkansas are 21%. That's worse than the national average of 16%. About a quarter of Arkansas children live in a household where more than 30% of their income goes to housing, and 10% of Arkansas teenagers are neither working nor are in school. That is much worse than the national rate of 7%, and it's worse than Arkansas's pre-pandemic rate as well. On the health side, again, this is where we ranked 47th. The share of children without health insurance rose to 7%. That's about 44,000 kids in Arkansas without health insurance, and the national rate is only 5%. 38% of Arkansas children aged 10 to 17 are overweight or obese. That's 7 points higher than the national rate. We also have low birth weight rates compared to the national average, and we have much higher death rates. So we had 40 deaths per 100,000 children and teens. The national average is just 29. In our family and community category, which is somewhere that I would think Arkansas would excel, not really. Our teen birth rate did drop to 24 per 1,000, but that's nearly double the national average, which is 13. And the share of children who live in single-parent households is 37%, and that is higher than the national average of 34%. In education, this is where we're not in the bottom 10. We're ranked 36th, but 2 out of 4 education indicators actually got worse. Most notably, 72% of 4th graders in Arkansas are not proficient in reading. That's up from 70% in 22 and below the national rate of 70%. 80% of 8th graders were not proficient in math. And that, of course, is worse than the 73% national average. So we have got a lot of work to do right by our kids here in Arkansas, and that study clearly points it out. So let's move to something that's a little bit more feel-good. Baum Walker Stadium in Fayetteville was rocking Sunday as Logan Maxwell hit a grand slam in the 4th inning that helped us knock off Tennessee 11-4. So we're on our way to Omaha. It is our 12th trip to Omaha and our 8th trip under Coach Dave Van Horn. We went 5-0, 5-0 in the NCAA tournament, finished 37-4 at home this season. That's a school record. The Razorbacks hit 3 home runs in Sunday's win, jumping out to a 7-1 lead through just 4 innings and never looking back. Van Horn got emotional after the game, calling the win a relief after 2 years of falling short here on our home turf. Over to some politics news. Lobbyist reported spending more than $1.6 million during this year's regular legislative session. That's the highest total in at least 18 years, according to filings with the Secretary of State, and it's a major jump from the last session's $560,000. The biggest spending campaign came from a group called Plus Communications, which spent more than $700,000. Most of that was used to fight Act 624, that is a new law banning pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, from owning pharmacies in Arkansas. The group spent heavily on advertising and robocalls aimed at legislators, and that fight is actually now playing out in federal court, where CVS and Express Scripts are suing to block the law. But Plus Communications wasn't the only spender. The American Coalition for Affordable Health Care and a lobbyist for the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association also reported spending $83,000 on advertising. The Arkansas Pharmacists Association, which backed the PBM reforms, spent nearly $35,000. Altogether, 10 different groups reported spending more than $20,000 during the session. The lobbying also extended to receptions and events. Nearly $345,000 was spent on planned activities, a category that includes receptions for lawmakers, and these ranged from a legislative dinner at Saracen Casino Resort to a tent reception hosted by the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce. The scale of the spending has raised eyebrows, especially given that 2023's total was less than half of what was spent this year. Okay, on to that good news about Grant Hardin. Convicted killer and former police officer Grant Hardin is back in custody after nearly 2 weeks on the run. He was found Friday morning about a mile and a half west of the North Central unit he escaped from, near Moccasin Creek. That is where he walked out of prison back on May 25th while disguised in a fake law enforcement style uniform. Really just a black outfit. The arrest happened in a rugged, wooded part of Izard County. Officials say that high water and heavy rain in recent weeks had made search efforts difficult, but some tracking dogs were able to pick up his scent. A tactical team from the U.S. Border Patrol was brought in for their expertise in difficult terrain, and they were able to help locate and capture him. Now, Hardin is now going to be held at the Varner Supermax prison, and an internal investigation is underway to determine how he got the black clothing that he used to escape and whether anyone helped him. A federal court has upheld Arkansas's current congressional map, rejecting a lawsuit that claimed it illegally weakened the voting power of black residents in southeast Pulaski County. The challenge was filed by the Christian Ministerial Alliance and a group of voters who argued that splitting Pulaski County into 3 districts after the 2020 census amounted to racial gerrymandering. The county, which includes Little Rock, had traditionally been kept in a single district. But the 3-judge panel ruled that the plaintiffs failed to prove that lawmakers acted with racial intent. The court said the redistricting decisions could reasonably be explained by political and geographic factors, like maintaining community boundaries or balancing populations, that were not race-related. The judges also pointed out that under the alternative maps proposed by the plaintiffs, Republicans would have been less likely to win, which suggests political strategy, not racial targeting, may have driven the map. Attorney General Tim Griffin praised the decision and said it aligns with a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that set a high bar for proving racial gerrymandering. The Arkansas Board of Corrections is in hot water over unpaid legal fees. A state audit revealed that the board owes their attorney more than $200,000, but doesn't have the legal authority to actually pay him. Now, that lawyer was hired to sue Governor Sanders over 2 laws passed in 2023 that transferred power from the board to the governor's office. But the board never submitted the contract through the state's procurement system, and they failed to follow the legal process required for hiring outside counsel. Senator Jonathan Dismang said he was disappointed by the audit findings and that the board had acted improperly. The lawsuit against the governor is still pending in Pulaski County Circuit Court, and the Arkansas Supreme Court recently allowed it to move forward. Again, that attorney remains unpaid. U.S. Marshals arrested 21-year-old Kadrick Johnson on Friday in connection with the April 13th mass shooting in a Conway park that left 2 people dead and 9 others injured. He was found at a home in Pine Bluff, where he was arrested. Johnson faces 2 counts of capital murder, 1 count of terrorism, and 9 counts of attempted capital murder. He is the 3rd suspect to be arrested from that shooting. His younger brother, 18-year-old Kamari Johnson, is still wanted. All right, that'll do it for us for today, Monday, June 9th. Have a great week, and we'll be back with more tomorrow.